So, talk with this gentleman, man. He's hanging out in the studio. His story is real interesting. How would you feel if you created something, guys, and tomorrow you woke up and somebody took your creation and stole it and sold it? How would that make you feel?
Whew, man, I'd be ready to do a little more than fighting. If it was something that, was near and dear to my heart or potentially very profitable, they turned it into something very profitable for them. Mm-hmm. It would be time to handle that.
Well, we've heard a lot that happens in film industries where movies are getting in different ways, copyright infringements, stolen from writers. What's interesting, though, is you hear about it, but then you don't hear about it. It's not like it's on the 10 o'clock news. For instance, the situation with Matrix. Matrix was a franchise. They're being sued a couple of times, twice, as a matter of fact, for copyright infringement. The first suit came from a woman named Sophia Stewart, who claimed that Wachowskis, I can't pronounce his name. Wachowski stole...
Wachowski brothers.
That's what it was, Wachowski brothers, that she claimed that they stole it. And is that still going on, that case?
She won her case.
Oh, she won it. And so you didn't hear about that. You don't hear about that. Also, other films that are or allegedly stolen, Cabin in the Woods, Avatar, Curse of the Black Pearl, is that the Pirates of the Caribbean sequels? Finding Nemo.
Wow.
Cars. Titanic. Now, the interesting thing about Titanic is Princess Samantha Kennedy, that's her name, she sued Paramount for copyright infringements for Titanic in 2012, claiming that Titanic had ripped off her yet unpublished biography about her father. The suit was dismissed in court. They said the similarities weren't that similar or for something like that. But a lot of times people don't win with these cases, and it always seems to be a way around it because you can never really tell who came up with the idea or whose idea, because Beyonce was with the Formation song. She was going through a lawsuit with the guy who made a video who claimed that he took, not the Formation, the Lemonade video. Is that one that there was a Lemonade? She was going through something like that. It's always interesting when you hear this. Other movies you may not know that have been going through copyright infringements: Ted, Indiana Jones, The Raiders of the Lost Ark, and The Purge. So in the studio with us is a gentleman who wrote a film. And this film came out in 2002. I'm not going to tell you the film yet, but I'm going to tell you it was a good film. It's one of those films that I put on, and I tend to watch it, just to pass time during the day. $36 million was the budget for this film. This film so far has grossed over $100 million. It was written by James Kearns, or at least that's who's in the credit. The story is John Q. You all know the story. Mm-hmm. But ladies and gentlemen, in the studio with us is a gentleman who has written a book called The Nose of Men, The Yes of God. And what this book does is it tells his story and the journey with him fighting the movie company, the writers, because he's the original writer of John Q. Please introduce yourself to everybody, man.
Good evening, Mr. Starks.
Well, you call me Cool Out, man. Yeah.
Cool Out, I'm sorry. And I just want to thank you guys for having me on. So let me introduce myself. My name is Chatunda Tillman Sr., and I am the original author for the feature film John Q, starring Denzel Washington. And you can check my website out at www.therealjohnq.com, www.therealjohnq.com. I wrote a book called The Nose of Men, The Yes of God. And I just want to say off the back that I'm no respecter person, and I'm not necessarily a fan of religion, but I do believe in the Most High, and that's how I got through this ordeal. So let me just kind of give you a little background.
Well, hold on before you give us a little bit of background.
Sure, go ahead.
Let me ask you this. Is it okay if I call you Toon?
Absolutely.
Okay.
I was waiting for that. Yeah.
Okay.
My friends call me Toon, so
right.
Yeah, y'all call me Toon.
Because I would mess up Chatunda.
Right. No, you did. That was a good one.
Well, did I get it right?
You did.
Impressed.
Okay.
Wow.
Chatunda. I'll mess up a name. But of course.
I'm like, wait. It's Johanna Leia.
Just call me Toon.
Johanna, I'm working on it. But of course, when people hear you say that you are the creator and writer of John Q,
yes,
there's pessimistic attitudes that pop up. Like, okay, what makes you the writer? You know, so you probably get this all the time. And I want our crew to be honest and ask him any question. But what I was most impressed with you, Tune, was that he did the due diligence to follow every single thing up. So it's not just a claim like he wrote it on a napkin and left it at a restaurant and somebody walked in.
Exactly.
You originally wrote the script and went to Writers Guild of America.
Absolutely.
And they told you, well, you tell it, please.
All right. So let me just give you a little background real quick.
Okay.
In 1998, I lived the actual experience for the feature film John Q. My child was sick in a hospital, and at the time I didn't have health insurance. So myself and the hospital was going back and forth over them telling me that we're not going to do the surgery and we're not going to even touch your kid case until you can come with some money or come with some insurance.
Wow.
So at the time, you know, I was just taking all my notes in the hospital because I said in this country where we got money for wars and we got money for, you know, other things, certainly I deserve health care and I work 2 jobs. So that was my whole thing with the hospital. And so because they was treating me like that, you know, I just took all the notes in the hospital, and that's where the idea was born off my life. And so a couple months into my stay at the hospital with my child, I said, man, I have something good here, you know, something that could be positive and affect change. And at the time, I didn't want to, you know, be negative and lay hands on people. So I just decided to use my energy in a constructive, positive way. And so I wrote the script and I copywrote it first. That was between myself and the Most High because I was in my early 20s. What did I know about that? But God gave me that vision to copyright it, so I copywrote it. And then after that, I wanted to get the film developed, so I became a member of the Writers Guild in California. So mid-1998, myself and the Writers Guild are going back and forth for about 4 months. And they specifically asked me in a conference, they said, Mr. Tillman, who do you want to star you in the film? Of course, I said Denzel Washington or Cuba Gooding Jr. Those were the 2 hottest African-American actors at the time, and I wanted my lead character to be African-American because I'm African-American. And so they said, we love your script. If you want Denzel, we can get him, you know. And I was like, cool. And so nothing happened for me after that, after they used me for the information. I mean, everything you saw in that film came directly out of my life or out of my script.
Now, in your book, Tune, you actually sort of narrate the process you're following and fighting this battle.
I did.
Now, the WGA, they told you not to copyright it.
Yes, they did. And that's extremely important. Listen to this, guys. It's not about money to me. It's about respect to me because God is going to put me in my rightful place at the head of the table and not the tail. But do not send anything to the Writers Guild of America and to the Writers Guild of America West unless you plan on having it stolen. Now,
but when you say that, you don't believe that's the case with anybody's work. I mean, because it happened to you, maybe you ran into the wrong person.
No, sir. I believe that the Writers Guild is a mechanism in which to launder films. Ever since I've been on this mission, so many people have reached out to me telling me it was the Writers Guild that was the conduit for their work to get stolen. And so the Writers Guild was encouraging me not to copyright it. And I thought that was kind of strange because, you know, you have my scripts in your possession. You have my scripts in your possession and you're telling me not to copyright it. But I already copywrote it. So I just continued to talk to the literary agent, and they really had me thinking that they was going to make my film. But see, what they do is they load you up front with promises of grandeur, et cetera, et cetera. But I'm not playing that game that they play in Hollywood. And so, yeah, I did not get my due, and I didn't get my financial compensation, but I kept my manhood and I kept my integrity. And to me, that was more important than anything, because God is going to put me in my rightful place. But the Writers Guild, my recommendation is to stay away from the Writers Guild. And so if you go back and look at some of those cases, I believe that more than 50% of those cases involve the Writers Guild. And so with my case, in order to survive summary judgment in my case, and if I could just have a minute to just explain to you what happened to me.
In court?
In court.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, so in order to survive summary judgment, now understand this. Before I found my case, I had some attorneys who tried to manipulate me and during the negotiations with myself and Time Warner over the residuals, the financial compensation, but I also told them as a part of my settlement, you're not going to steal my screenplay. And actually, John Q made $250 million globally and domestically. And with that money, Time Warner made 7 other films. I got to get a taste of that because they started a new company called Evolution with John Q as the first film that they produced. So because you took my script and you started a new company, and with that money, you made 7 other films, I got to get a piece of it.
Let me ask you this. They wanted to settle with you at one point.
They did.
So let me ask you guys, when someone wants to settle, is that a
red flag?
A red flag for guilt?
Absolutely.
And this is how they tried to get me in a settlement. I said, listen, not only do I want to get compensated, but you're going to give me a credit because you don't get to steal something that was personal to me. It's about respecting me. You don't get to steal something that I lived and endure it, and then you take it to Hollywood and you make hundreds of millions of dollars and don't acknowledge my contribution to the film when there was no John Q without me. And so, like I said, I picked Denzel for the part, and I took him to court. Now, before I filed my case, we was going back in negotiations. I said I want a credit for John Q. So Time Warner arranged for me to go to their studio, and I met with Charles Thomas, and we watched the movie, and we read the scripts and we watched the film, and they agreed that, yeah, they stole it. And I said, cool, but they never aired it. Now, I read a book called The Art of War by Sun Tzu, and it's like 13 chapters. It was a while ago, but it specifically details how you're supposed to go to war. How you supposed to go to war. So I went into Time Warner's studios with the full knowledge, but I had that black awareness to stay on my square. But I needed to know what they knew, and they wanted to know what I had against them. So when I filed my case, I filed as a pro se because you only get 3 years to file statute of limitations. So my lawyers was trying to gas me up, saying, oh, we're going to get you these millions of dollars and, everything's going to go your way, knowing that February 15th was the third day of the final day of the 3rd-year statute of limitations. And that's what I'm saying. The Most High is what gave me the intuition to concurrently plan. So while they was so-called spinning me off, I was concurrently planning, filing my brief and my motion, so that the day before the 3-year statute of limitations, I filed my case. Oh, and by the way, when I filed my case, Denzel Washington had a conference with my lawyers and said, Mr. Tillman, they specifically told me directly, Mr. Tillman, if you let Denzel out the case, this is Denzel speaking, if you let me out of the case, I'm going to break bread with you. So I said, cool, because, again, I didn't want them to be in a position to pit black against black. And not that I respect the
But
color.
that would have also have hurt Denzel's image as well.
Exactly. Right. And so, I'm not on that. I just want...
Well, let me ask you this, because they tried to settle with you, and in the book, you have court documents as you're going through this.
Absolutely.
Is that legal to publish the court documents?
It absolutely is, and I'll tell you why. Number one, because it's about me.
Okay.
And anything related to me, I have the right to publish.
Gotcha.
Under the First Amendment Act, because I know all the amendments, and I'll get to that later. But number two, you're not going to violate my civil and constitutional rights and think you're going to walk away scot-free. And that's the problem. The cases that you cited, there's about another 100 or more that
never even get hurt.
That never get hurt because people can't afford to fight them. And I spend over 6 figures fighting them.
Well, I'll tell you this, that, there are a lot of, in Hollywood, because it's such a big money game, there are a lot of people that are protecting their positions. Nobody wants to lose the advantage of making millions of dollars.
Exactly.
And, they probably won't admit it, but I'm sure everyone in Hollywood has, a creative license with somebody else's ideas before. But what I'm proud to see from you is the diligence that you followed through with this. He went to court. If you look in his book, he shows a court document. Everything that the defense tried to place and say, okay, one thing we were talking about is how they said they copywrote it. Explain that story to him real fast.
Thank you, man. Okay, now let me show you something, guys. I just told you what the 4 elements are to survive summary judgment. 1, original copyright. 2, access. 3, similarities. And 4, citizenship. And that's it. That's all I needed to do to get a trial by jury. No questions about it. It's in black and white. But when it comes to us, things change. Now, I lived this in 98 and copyrighted in 98, became a member of the Writers Guild in 98. The copyright for John Q was in 2000. So which year comes first, 98 or 2000?
98, of course.
98. So now what they tried to do was go back and say, well, no, Mr. Tillman, forget the copyright for a second. They got these articles from 1993 and 94 from the writers, from Variety.com and Hollywood Reporter. Let me talk about Variety.com first. Are you guys sitting down?
Yeah.
Okay. So they give me this article from Variety.com.
Okay.
Allegedly saying that Kearns wrote John Q in 93. Variety.com, the website wasn't created until 1996. Daily Variety wasn't created until 98.
So they're saying that these places, these entities, wrote an article or talked about making the film?
Wrote an article. My question to the judge was, Your Honor, how can you give me an article from a source that wasn't in existence? Variety.com wasn't created until 1996. So how do you give me a Variety.com article from 93? And then the second one was in 98. You have my copyright in 98. You have my script in 98. And then you give me a 1994 Hollywood Reporter article allegedly proving that James Kearns wrote it and that Denzel starred in it. James Kearns' name wasn't in the article and Denzel's name wasn't in the article. And that's all they had. That's it.
Dude, they underestimated you so drastically.
Listen, man, because unfortunately, and I'm no respecter person, I'm just talking about specific individuals. James Kearns happened to be a Caucasian, Town Warner happened to be Jewish, and whites and Jews never apologize for anything.
Nope.
And so what I'm saying is I'm going to get mine. You can say, Mr. Tillman, you anti-Semitic. Okay, Henry Ford created the vehicles that took the Nazis to the camps. And when an African American is going to be able to get out of our ghettos, the Jews got out of their ghettos. And so everything is interconnected. By stealing people's rights. That's the essence of it. And it's a case called Feist versus Rule in 1991, where the case specifically said originality is the cornerstone of copyright protection. But let me tell you what they did to me. They said, well, Mr. Tillman, yeah, it was original to you, but that doesn't matter in this case.
Why doesn't it matter?
That's my point. That was my point to the judge. I said, Your Honor, I lived this. I got a statement from my kid's doctor saying he lived it. I got an order from the hospital because I know y'all saw John Q when he said transfer my kid. I lived that. I got an order from my kid's hospital to transfer them to another hospital.
And it's to somebody who was just listening. It sounds very complicated. So you wrote John Q. You copywrote it in what year?
In 1998.
And you talked to the writer who at that time was working for the Writers Guild.
I never talked to Kearns. I talked to the literary agent at the Writers Guild. That's what I'm saying.
But Kearns worked there. Now, number one, I had the original copyright. The judge said the copyright doesn't matter in the copyright case. Go figure.
Mm-hmm.
Two, the Writers Guild
Wait, hold on.
He said in a copyright case,
yes, sir,
the copyright doesn't matter?
That's what he said in my case. In this particular case, I said, Your Honor, first of all, I ain't the one, okay? I graduated from Chicago State. I graduated from Claire Barton and Bogan, and that's why I'm wearing orange and black because those are my school colors, so I'm repping. But the essence is, he said the copyright doesn't matter in my case. I said, no, sir, it does matter. Then he said, well, they had access to your screenplay but didn't read it.
What?
That's listen to me.
That's guilt right there. I mean, they put it all on the table. They gave themselves away.
It almost sounds like the judge is trying to protect them.
He is.
Well, and they do that they do that in so many cases. The judge protects themselves, the state's attorney protects themselves, the judge protects the state's attorney protects themselves, the police protect. I mean, it's chess.
Public defender, they all in it all together.
They're all in the mix.
Which makes you feel like you have
Everybody's
no rights.
on payroll.
But you have to, and this is my point. I'm not a wealthy person. So anyway, James Kearns said he never worked for the Writers Guild, but check this out. His social security number is 030348510. James Kearns. Here's his entire payment history. He was getting paid. Check this out. Check number 301.
You have the check numbers from when he was
Every
getting
check they ever
paid
paid him.
from the WGA.
Yes, sir. But he said he never worked there. So my script was at the place that you worked, that you got paid. It's a case called Coles versus Merrills. And as long as the three of us are concurrently working with the same institution, that's reasonable opportunity to view it.
Okay,
Absolutely.
here's what we got to do, because we'll be here all day with this. Tune, first of all, brother, I'm applaud you for doing your work, man.
Thank you.
Yes.
Now, what happens now?
So now I'm in talks with attorneys, and they want to bring it back up because I got to get my justice.
Now, do you go to the regular court or do you go to like the Supreme Court?
I already took it to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said, we're not going to hear your case at this time.
Why?
What kind of ruling is that? Rule on my case, but they know if they do, and I got the evidence to refute it, that's going to put them in a negative light. And so because they don't own you guys, I love you guys, but Town wanted to try to run all the media to control the stories. Mm-hmm. And so as I go on this mission, their job is to try to stop me, but I can't be stopped.
Well, what happens too is then you set case law. So what happens is if they rule on your case and show you favor, then guess what? Every Nemo, all the other movies, it's case law at that point, so it's set. So if they allow him to get away with this,
then they have to go back,
because all they have to do is cite cases.
There you go.
Go on and
in
set
this
that
case,
precedence,
at this
bro.
day, you know.
That's what I'm trying to do.
So this is way bigger than just one case. Now.
Absolutely.
Where can people reach you? Because you also have footage of you actually in court. And
Absolutely. Please go to www.therealjohnq.com. www.therealjohnq.com, and scroll at the bottom of my website. You can actually hear me in court busting their ass. Excuse me.
Hey, man.
You can actually, you can actually hear me in court standing up for my rights.
You know it's emotional when a brother just cursing for no, like, man, it's all right, too.
I understand.
But I understand the passion of this.
You can actually hear me in court. www.therealjohnq.com. Scroll to the bottom, and you can listen to Court Audio 1 and Court Audio 2. And there I stand up for my rights as a man. And when you do that, when you articulate and you don't go off and hurt somebody, and you can present yourself with dignity and class. Look at Obama. With all due respect to our president, you see how they treated him with class. But now you got another person in the White House who don't exhibit that same amount of class. So I just try to work with integrity as it relates to this piece, because they tried to get me on a technicality with all of this foolishness telling me access doesn't matter, your copyright doesn't matter, the similarities doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter if you're a citizen. Well, I decided to fight the right way and be an example and be a model, because so many people get their work stolen. So many people give up. And I encourage people to never give up, because the way we affect change is I want to be the change I want to see. So in order for me to do that, I got to get out here and fight and be that example.
Ladies and gentlemen, his name is Tune. Say your real name for him so I don't mess it up.
Chatunda Tillman Sr.
And where can they get the book and everything?
www.therealjohnq.com. www.therealjohnq.com. And I take pleasure in fighting them, because this is not the only screenplay that the Writers Guild had of mine. So stay tuned.
Can I just say this one thing?
Yes, ma'am.
Don't make it a white and Jewish thing. Make it a greed thing. Make it a green thing.
It is. It's about good and evil.
Let's make it a green
That's what it
thing.
is.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I need to clarify who was involved, because when I speak in general terms, I don't want to offend anybody thinking that I'm speaking in general terms.
But when you say it like that, it is assumed it's general, but the people you want is the writer.
There you go. The writers, right. Time Warner.
Right.
Let me tell you, James Kearns, Nick Cassavetes, the Writers Guild, Evolution, Island, Denzel, all the judges in my case was erroneous. Judge Denlow, Judge Norberg, Judge Connelly, they violated my rights, my civil and constitutional rights. In fact, when you get the book, you'll actually read in court that they said, Mr. Tillman, you know the law. So then how can you acknowledge that I know the law and then violate my rights and expect me not to react?
With court, a lot of times they try to time you out. They try to stretch it as far as they can, because either you run out of money.
Well, but again, he sets a precedence then for everybody else. It's just like King. He broke the barriers, and so now,
Let me ask
laws
you this.
are in place.
Has there ever been that anybody can remember of anybody that actually won against these movie companies when they've taken an idea? Because
they're so powerful. They're so wealthy.
Everything that I've read, every last movie that I just talked about, they're either still in court trying to fight it, or they have kicked it out and they've lost. I have not seen anyone.
Two things.
To actually...
I'm going to answer that question real quick. Anybody at this table answer, why did I have 3 judges in my case when OJ only had one judge in his case? I had 3 judges in my case to cause confusion. So 1 minute, I go in front of Judge Denlow, and he tells me, Mr. Tillman, use your Second Amendment complaint as the response to their motion to dismiss. And when we do that, then the second judge, Judge Norberg, dings us for doing what the first judge says. And then he quits the case and goes on vacation after they paid him off. And then Judge Kennelly comes into the case and does the same thing. And so I had 3 judges in my case. But there is someone that we can look towards.
Okay.
Her name is Sophia Stewart. You can reach her at matrixterminator.com. You can reach her at matrixterminator.com. She won her case. And again, like I said before, I consider her as a mentor because she paved the way for this kind of work.
Okay.
And so, but I feel that we're equals. She and I stay communicated all the time.
And she sort of gives you some advice on how to.
She gives me advice.
Because her battle was how many years in like
over 10 or 15.
Because not only Matrix, Terminator.
Matrix and a Terminator.
Yeah.
And so my question is,
they got both ideas.
And my question is, I don't have nothing but respect for Mr. Washington, Denzel Washington, but at the same time, bro, you ate off my pain and suffering, and you got to atone for that bottom line.
Well, but Tune, and not to be, I'm gonna be objective. Denzel is a higher talent. You know what I'm saying? And he gave you, I don't know what he gave you, but he said, hey, man, let me do this because he's not involved in the decision making of that film.
But he directed it. He directed it and he got paid. And I don't
he directed John Q?
Yes, he did.
Yep.
And I don't want to say how much he got paid because, again, I'm not making it personal. But I do have his information as well.
But they hired him as a director.
Right, exactly.
At my request. So I was calling the shots at that moment.
So you think the only reason he got in the film was because of the creative outlet you said?
They didn't know nothing about it till I was at the table with them. And I'm the one that chose him. So he ate off my plate. I got to eat off his plate.
Well, I'll tell you this, man. You get that Ryder, you get Evolution, you get them brothers. But leave my man Denzel alone.
Hey, get him on.
Right. Get him on.
Well, I will say this. I would have liked to. We got to wrap this up. We got to go. But I will say this. With all of the actors that are in Hollywood and how difficult it is to survive in it, just like they did for the Grammys when African American films weren't being put in nomination, there should be something to come together because when people's work are getting stolen, or even if people are or have the idea, there should be something with a coalition where people say, hey, we have to strain this. We have to figure out how to do this. And maybe Denzel is like, and I'm just speculating, maybe Denzel is like, you know what? This is not my problem. I don't want to deal with him, man. I got enough money to give you a little bit of something. Just keep me out the case because I'll be in this case forever.
And that's what he said.
Either that or you're like my manager. You walk around with an idea and then a sheet to sign off. So everyone has to sign it before you start talking.
Or does Denzel need to have more responsibility and take up when, minorities are being taken advantage in Hollywood?
But look at this, guys. And in my book, that's why you got to get the book, because I was very as neutral as I could be with Mr. Washington, because my beef is not with him necessarily. Right. So in the book, I even defended him when Sony came at him when they was dissing him. And so my question overall is, we have so much money in the African American community with our entertainers and what they bring in. Why haven't we started our own Oscars? Why haven't we started our own production companies? Why do we have to keep running to them when we what count? I'm the one that created the revenue for them to have the lawyers to fight me in court. And when I asked for my own attorney, because only a fool would represent himself, you know what the judge said? Mr. Tillman, you don't need a lawyer right now. I said, Your Honor, they have lawyers with the money that I made the way for them to have.
Wait a minute, they told you didn't need a lawyer.
I put this on everything that God loves. It's in this book. Court transcripts don't lie.
He said you didn't need a lawyer.
Judge Matthew Kennelly said, well, Mr. Tillman, you can handle it.
I broke my finger at work, and the first thing they said was get a lawyer.
There you go. And we talking about hundreds of millions of dollars.
Ladies and gentlemen, please tell me your name again.
Chatunda Tillman Sr., www.therealjohnq.com. Thank you, guys.
Man, his story is extraordinary. Ladies and gentlemen, can we give him a round of applause?
Thank you.
Find out more about it, and we'll continue to stay in touch in what's going on, but I feel the brother's pain and emotion. Right now, we're going to go ahead. Oh, and shouts out to the Facebook followers who are listening to us, man. What up to everybody on Cool Out Radio? Show them your face, man, right there. You guys get that book. This is the right of John Q. And right now, people are probably going, what? Huh?
Yeah.
And that's what happens. Like, they didn't know a black female wrote Matrix. Look at that. And Terminator.
And Sophia Stewart is cold, man. the girl is bad.
But I would love to talk to her because that journey itself is something that we all need to hear. And people here, and these all creative individuals here, man, you just never know when or how your idea may play a part in somebody else's rise. So I said enough because I'll start saying stuff I don't need to be saying. We got to go to break. My producers like we got to get out of here. LaDonna Ray.
Check the box that says Caucasian on the 2020 census.
Okay. She's Wildcat.
I don't know what she's talking about.
Farouk Abdul-Basir.
Man, that was deep, man, for real.
And Johanna Leah.
That was. Keep pushing through because the knowledge is power.
It is, man. It is.
And I appreciate the opportunity to have a voice.
Oh, no problem at all, man. All right.
I appreciate the opportunity to have a voice because it was extremely difficult. And guys, don't think I didn't see some dark days. And with the recent events, you know, the way I handle my problems is, you know, I look to the Most High. I believed in my family and supported my family. And I just remembered it's not about money because I got to worship the one that created the tree that made the money. So if I keep my attention focused in the right direction, when you transgress against me, I can take myself to another place and continue to fight. It was expensive. They tried to bury me in paperwork and say, oh, he's going to give up. We're going to throw 3 judges at him. You run to this court. Now you run to that court. Now you run to this court.
All right, man. We got to go, man. Let's go to break. My name is Johnny Starks, a.k.a. Cool Out. What up to everybody on Facebook? Hey, keep us locked. We got so much more coming up. Cool Out Radio. Let's go.
One station. Feel me now. Listen. One night. Yeah. One show. I am Cool Out Radio.